Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware. I am delighted to serve as your worship associate today, but you may notice that I am not Helen Foss, who was slated to be here today. It's not your screen, it's not your glasses. I'm Kate Fronta, pinch hitting for Helen, who is at home on the couch, and we wish her a speedy recovery from one of the various bugs that are so prevalent at this time of year. So this welcome is hers. Welcome to all of you who are here in person in the sanctuary this morning, and welcome to each of you at home watching online. Welcome, no matter the hue of your skin or the origin of your ethnicity. Welcome, no matter whom you love or where you are on your spiritual journey. Whether you are doubting, believing, or searching, you are welcome here. If you are new to our church, we invite you to check us out on firstuuwilm.org and sign up for our e-newsletter that will arrive every Friday in your inbox like clockwork. So, Reverend Larry, you challenged our thinking, mine and Helen's, with your service description to think about what practices we are engaged in to keep us vibrant, to keep us engaged, and to keep us growing and learning. I am here coming to church services regularly nourished, for sure. Helen participates in the monthly Soul Matters group, and that is not dissimilar to the small group that she and Robert joined years ago in church, and they met continuously challenging each other for over 20 years. That has kept her growing. These days, she also reads her op-ed pieces in the New York Times, and both of us sit and think and are prompted by the pieces in our UU World magazine. Helen remembers the first time she felt vibrant, and that was when she was learning something new about herself, something new about the world in which she lives. Wonderfully, this has been a feeling she has had when she and Robert traveled as they discovered worlds open to them while visiting and learning about new cultures. I, too, feel vibrant when I travel to different cultures and sacred sites around the world. For me, being at altitude does something for me, and I don't know if it's the lack of oxygen, but the change in the breathing really ignites that vibrancy for me. So we ask you, what has made you feel alive? How have you recently realized you were growing? What did you learn recently? And when I say vibrant, can you picture how that feels? Helen and I are looking forward to hearing from Reverend Larry this morning, perhaps to learn anew ways to keep us growing and learning. And now, let us prepare our hearts and minds for worship.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Larry Piers, minister here at the First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, and I'm just standing here admiring the forthright souls that made it through the cold to be in the presence of this warm community today. So, welcome. If I had a fire and brimstone sermon to offer, I would do that. But we'll just have to keep ourselves warm and enlightened today. We have to wish Andrew, who's visiting us from Los Angeles, a happy birthday. You had a birthday this week, right? Anyone else have a birthday this week? Did you have a birthday, Tom? No, you have a birthday every day is a new day, which relate to my opening words. Okay, so for our opening words today, I'm drawing from this poem by Kalidasa, who's widely regarded as the greatest Sanskrit poet and dramatist of all times. These words might be very familiar to some of us. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Let's join together now in worship.
If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to join me by lighting it as Reverend Larry lights our sanctuary chalice. And I read these words by Brian C. Lee, an Oregon UU lay leader. We light our chalice as a symbol of the light within us and the life that flows through the world around us. It is our beacon as we search for truth. It is the warmth in our hearts for love, and it is the energy that propels us to action. May we be kindled by our time together. Please rise now as you are willing and able and join in singing hymn 38, Morning Has Broken. Please stay standing and join me in affirming our mission. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action. Please be seated.
The prayer that I will be offering this morning is a prayer that was composed by Jacob Trapp, a Unitarian minister who served Unity Church Unitarian in St. Paul, Minnesota, another cold place, for over 20 years. And in his retirement, he moved to Southwest Harbor, Maine, and spent his time doing pottery. I'm sure all those years of ministry led him to that pottery wheel. So let's open our hearts to a time of prayerful reflection guided by these words. Let me be open-eyed, observant of the perpetual miracle of life and love on this fragment of a star flung across the infinity of space. Appreciative of Earth's symphony of color, harmony of shape, and ubiquity of beauty. Alert to the wonderfulness of little children, the strength and dignity in ordinary people, the unsung heroism to all the gratifying nuances of the human story, to every intimation of divinity in the lives around me. Let me be open-eared, tuned in to all the varied music of the world, to human melodies and to the songs of wind and water, insect and bird. Let me be responsive to the call to adventure, the summons to high endeavor, the appeal to conscience, and to the falling of human tears, the anguish wrenched from human hearts. Let me be open-minded, receptive to unfamiliar thoughts, to strange viewpoints and new ideas, making doubly certain to give fair hearing to all that challenges my complacency, my prejudgments, my unexamined assumptions. Let me be open-handed, ready to share Earth's bounty, to meet people, stranger as well as neighbor, with trust, expecting to find them where they ought to be. Let me eschew all miserably clutching, all grasping at life as though it were not as blessed to give as to receive. Let me open my mouth not in foolish boast or much speaking, but to utter the word of courage, the word of cheer, the word of sympathy and hope. Let me sing with the psalmist, O God, O holy, O divine, open my lips and my mouth shall show forth your praise. Let's pause now in a time of shared silence during which we can allow whatever concerns we have for ourselves, or others, or this world to surface to our own consciousness and our own mindful and heartful attention. If in your heart this morning you are holding a concern for yourself, for another, or for our world, and you wish to speak it into this room or write it in the chat, let's take a moment now to hear each other. Who has a concern? We'll start at this side of the room. Just speak. Speak louder. Oh, okay. Brother. In this part of the room. Yeah.
Motherhood.
And in this area of the room, you have a concern that you'd like to voice aloud.
My friend Susan Green died out in here. Mother, Brandy, children, S, and Kyra, who are staying in our home right now via the Cultivate project.
Hmm. May you feel surrounded by love and compassion. May you know that you need not hold any concern alone. Is there a joy that, like the sun breaking through this window, wants to break through into this room and give expression to itself in the company of one another? So, does anyone have a joy they would like to share? Oh, wow. Nice. Is it Jerome? Is that right? What's your... Julian, right. Welcome, Julian. Great to see you again. Okay. Someone's really has a lot of joy with the advent of snow. Anyone else?
My daughter and her family's new home.
Oh, nice. So we gather together, holding sorrows and joys intertwined as one community, and hold them in the presence of love and in the presence of compassion that wants to express itself in us and through us. May all the names that were spoken and those unspoken find peace and healing this day.
And now, please join us in a responsive reading, which is called To Worship by Jacob Trapp. And you will be reading the congregation's response, and I'll be the reader. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in the sunlight, or a grain of sand.
To worship is to be silent receptive before a tree, astir with the fire, wind, passing shadow of a cloud.
To worship is to work with dedication and with skill. It is to pause from work and listen to a strain of music.
To worship is to sing with the singing beauty of the earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still, small voice within.
Worship is loneliness seeking communion. It is a thirsty land crying out for rain.
Worship is kindred fire within our hearts. It moves through the deeds of kindness and through acts of love.
Worship is the mystery within us, reaching out to the mystery beyond.
It is an inarticulate silence yearning to speak. It is the window of the moment open to the sky of the eternal. How not to be a zombie. It's an intriguing topic, isn't it? So I've seen less than a handful of zombie movies. Most of them, in my case, weren't zombie movies per se, just movies that took an unexpected turn, and then zombies appeared. Now, honestly, you could say that I didn't actually see any of these zombies, because if you take into account that my eyes were tightly closed the whole time during those scenes, I guess I didn't really see anything. You see, I'm not particularly fond of scary movies. And in particular, I don't like watching people running from The Walking Dead and the idea that if they catch you, you become a zombie too. My perspective is life sometimes can be scary enough as it is. Upon hearing my sermon title, my husband insisted that I watch a zombie movie in preparation for the sermon. I didn't. However, my approach, with both eyes open, I did find that there was some serious theological reflections on the phenomenon of zombies. One commentator asked more questions about the contemporary phenomenon of zombies in movies and literature and gaming, including, he said, our society is captivated by the undead. He said, what drives this zombie-filled imagination? What is its philosophical and theological import? Well, these are actually not the questions that really lured me towards the topic. Intriguing as these questions might be, even the various scholarly articles about the phenomenon of zombies and their theological implications weren't that titillating to me. And they're really not the point of my reflections with you today. You see, my concerns relate to the phenomenon that I'm noticing that are more about the real world and the time that we are in. Does it seem at times that there could be some semblance of the walking dead among us? Does it seem at times that there are those engaged in aimless wandering among us? Does it seem that there are those who are easily distracted? Does it seem that some of these tendencies can become highly contagious? Are we sometimes captured by these tendencies towards being the walking dead, engaging in aimless wandering, easily distracted, and susceptible to succumbing to these ways of being? No need to answer those questions. I believe that we are in a pivotal moment right now in our lives and in history, and we must intentionally decide what our posture might be in the year ahead of us. My concern is that we could succumb to a somewhat zombie posture arose out of what I've begun to hear all around me. In casual conversations, more and more people have been saying that they are checking out in one way or another. They may feel that all of their activism has not amounted to much. They may feel that their absorption in the news and the events in our world have become so problematic that they want to just change the channel or even just switch it all off. There are new polls that support this tendency. They propose that about 2/3 of American adults say they have recently felt the need to limit media consumption about politics and government because of overload. And this same survey from the Associated Press Center of Public Affairs Research claims that 8 out of 10 Democrats, 7 out of 10 Republicans have curtailed their consumption of the news, including news about climate change, wars happening in the world, in addition to the political news. There's been a 54% decrease in viewers on MSNBC, 45% drop of viewers on CNN, and interestingly enough, a 13% increase in viewers on the Fox News network. Very interesting. I get it. We're exhausted. We need a break. We're exhausted, right? Check. We need a break, right? Check. We're worried, right? We can only take in so much. But maybe, just maybe before we succumb to a zombie Walking Dead kind of existence, we engage in some sensible practices of taking care of ourselves, regulating our intake of news, but at the same time stay engaged, alert, and responsible, have the capacity, the ability to respond. Now, I speak for myself. For a number of months, I have religiously read early in the morning a number of Substack articles and news articles devotionally. I did notice that over time my caffeine and sugar intake started to go up, and my mood descended to apocryphal thoughts. So now, I try not to go there specifically first thing in the morning anymore. I return to a small book of what could be called a meditation manual as my morning reading. I had purchased it some years ago. It's entitled Taking Down the Defenses. It was written by Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Arthur Foote, who wrote some of the readings that we've been doing in our service today. And Peggy, did you know Arthur Foote because of his time in Southwest Harbor or anything like that? Nope? Okay, I thought you might, just because he was a minister for a long time. The book was published in 1972, but I feel it's timeless. Foote, like myself, has a practical, mystical perspective, one of being stirred by experiences of wonder and awe, and at the same time engaging more intentionally and forthrightly into this life. The reading prompts a time of reflecting and journaling. It's a reset practice, a reorienting practice, but it does not mean I'm tuning out of world events. One of Foote's daily meditations clarified for me what I was really seeking. Maybe you are seeking this too. The opening quote is to one of the meditations is from Albert Schweitzer, the famous medical doctor, humanitarian, musician, organist David, you probably knew that, and as some know, a theologian. Now, just a footnote, Kate, I first read Schweitzer's book, The Quest for the Historical Jesus, when I was a senior in high school, as I was searching for a path, a religious path to move forward. And I read his book, Reverence for Life. And both books were like a portal for me towards Unitarian Universalism. Some don't know this, but Schweitzer was a member of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, a church by mail at that time for isolated religious liberals around the world. So I feel I have to pay homage to Schweitzer when Foote provides this quote from Schweitzer. We do not have enough inwardness. We are not sufficiently preoccupied with our own spiritual life. We lack quietness, and this is not only because in our exacting, busy existence it's difficult to obtain, but because we are ignoring its importance. In reflecting on this, Arthur Foote writes, to be preoccupied with one's spiritual life has come to be considered morbid, a symptom of illness. Our perspective for spiritual health has been to let the soul strictly alone. Keep busy and on the move. Keep your mind occupied. This has been the order of the day. But living, Foote writes, is not only doing and acting. It is allowing life to flow in upon us. It is drawing aside from time to time to be an observer, to be a receiver. There must be times of withdrawal, of honest recognition of spiritual poverty, of firm resolve to secure a better balance between inwardness and outwardness, between being and doing. So, my friends, one of the keys to being vital, to not being a zombie, even in troubling times, may indeed to keep rebalancing between deliberate practices of inwardness and measured but deliberate times of attending to outwardness, to what's happening in our world. To live life human religiously means that we each find our balance and live on not just one pole or the other of activism or contemplation. I do firmly believe that it's healthy, obviously, to monitor and regulate our consumption of the news, particularly social media, which George Lakoff, the cognitive linguist and philosopher, writes is designed to destroy your attention span and manipulate your brain. Finding a necessary balance is an antidote to what otherwise could become overwhelming and disheartening, too absorbing, and possibly too numbing. Besides, if we become zombie-like, we'll start walking funny. That's as much as I know about zombies. What concerns me, however, is that if we totally tune out because we feel overwhelmed and hopeless, that we might actually be playing in the hand of the dynamics that are arising around us. George Lakoff writes, authoritarians want you to feel powerless because it makes their work easier. Courage, faith, and optimism are essential. Authoritarianism feeds on cynicism and pessimism. Starve it. No regime lasts forever. Resolve to do your part to ensure the survival of democracy. Choose to believe that we will find a way to come out stronger. It is not merely for political reasons, however, that I share my concerns. It's for social and spiritual reasons as well. What may seem like terrible news for some of us may be personally devastating news for others among us who have been the target of specific attacks because of their identity as gay, lesbian, transgender, or parents of transgender children, people of color, those who are in economic distress, or women of childbearing age. For the sake of those in our lives and among us here today, we need to be centered and also alert to what's happening. Centered and alert to what's happening and has already happened in some state. I like that movement. We can all do that. Centered, centered, and alert. So it's an and it's not an either or. That's kind of nice, wasn't it, Kate? Centered and alert. I saw a meme this week that showed President Jimmy Carter arriving in heaven and immediately addressing God by asking, "How can I help?" That's the posture that I think each of us can take as well in the midst of what is happening in our world. No matter how directly we are impacted, we need to ask one another, how can I help? We need to ask ourselves, how can I help? We can't take this posture if we are uninformed, if we're tuned out, or we feel so overwhelmed that we don't even have a helping bone left in our body. That is why finding the right balance between the inwardness and the outwardness, contemplation and action, is a social practice as well. It allows us to be available so that we can, to one another, ask, how can I help? What I've appreciated about Unitarian Universalism that I've come to know through some decades now is that we do not say we are only about spirituality or that we're only about social justice. Instead, when we live up fully to our heritage, we continue to explore the creative interchange between the two. And we recognize that the artificial division that we sometimes have created between spirituality and social justice is just that, artificial. We need to bring spiritual wakefulness alongside our right actions for compassion and justice. Sure, we do need to create pauses, but we do not need to tune out completely. Can I get an amen? As Unitarian Universalists, we have committed ourselves to affirm, promote, and embody justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. This is a social duty and a religious duty for us, not just one or the other, and we need to embody this now more than ever by being alert to how can I help and to be spiritually grounded and centered. We have so much capacity within us to ignite our lives again and again, even when we feel overwhelmed. Perhaps especially when we feel overwhelmed, done in, or like giving up. And we have so much capacity to ignite one another as well. We have used these words by Albert Schweitzer in our chalice lighting many a times, and they feel particularly relevant as a reminder to us now. Schweitzer wrote, "At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us." For me, as a person who joins with you in this congregation to be human religiously, to develop a spirituality that is not otherworldly but this worldly, that attempts to be more and more present to our own soul's emerging needs and the needs of our collective soul, committed to attending to our soul and tending to our community, is what it's about. A resource that I would recommend to any of us on how to seek ways to ignite ourselves from within again and again is based on the research and the life of Jeff Karp, a distinguished biomedical engineer and professor at Harvard Medical School and MIT, as well as a medical doctor at Boston's Brigham and Women's Hospital. He's also an entrepreneur who's created at least 12 different businesses from the products that they have developed in his lab. Dr. Karp begins his book by telling his own story of struggling in school as a young child with what he has now come to understand as an undiagnosed ADHD, a learning difference. His book, entitled L.I.T, Life Ignition Tools, Use nature's playbook to energize your brain, spark ideas, and ignite action. Took him 7 years to research and to write. And includes some examples from his own life and that of others who he interviewed, as well as some very well-documented practices. So if you feel an inclination towards zombieism, is that a word? Yes. It is, okay. During this time that we're in, this book, Lit, Life Ignition Tools, I believe, can be an anti-zombie workbook if you need one. The Lit practices that he offers are intended to get us out of the stuck places where we could easily check out and relinquish our capacities rather than cultivate them. Oftentimes, as Karp points out, the process of reigniting our life towards value-based actions begin when we realize that there is a gap between where we are and where we want to be. There's a gap between where our world is and where we want it to be. So in acknowledging and accepting those gaps when they occur, we can begin to sense what Karp calls the inner desire for possibility. I'm certain that many of us have had that experience now and then, that inner desire for possibility. Not just looking at what is, but being lured towards what's possible. Has there ever been a moment like that in your life? Just say yes. For me, that inner desire for possibility is what I've observed in my life, in my ministry with this congregation, and the lives of some remarkable people in this congregation. It is, for me, akin to what's called the divine spark, referred to in many religions. Among Kabbalistic Jews, this divine spark can be released through our actions. Among Quakers, among some Christians, it is considered the inner light of God or Christ, which shines within each person. Among our Unitarian transcendentalist ancestors, this divine spark, or spark of God, was believed to be within everyone, and it ignited their motivation to engage in personal practices of transcendent experiences in nature and in contemplative life. And also, it spurred them to actions towards the very real social concerns of their time: slavery, suppression of women's votes, and so forth, economic despair, practices of child labor. Karp proposes that when we recognize this gap between what is and what could be, when we sense the inner desire for possibility within us, that we participate in the ongoing evolution of ourselves and of humanity. He says that recognizing this inner desire for possibility can gradually lead us to ask, what is a step that I can take to evolve? If we don't keep evolving, he says, we start being submerged by these patterns and habits that can limit us and limit the possibilities of our life. Karp outlines practices which I don't have time to go into completely, but I'll describe a few of them here. I believe they're immediately accessible and relevant right now. They're also appearing on the screen. So let me go through them quickly. And there's also a handout by the name tag table there if you want of this list. So, one is flip the switch. Intercept routine patterns and make simple, deliberate changes. So Karp recognizes that he used to really zone out sometimes in lectures or in class, and then he realized that if he asked a question, that he paid attention to what happened right after. He became hyper-focused. And so he flipped the switch. Rather than staying in that drone zone, he did something that made him more alert and more engaged. Live for the questions. Tap into the vitality of inquiring by swapping caution for curiosity, and always dig deeper. So we know what it looks like when we're in a place of caution, place of judgment. What would it be like for us to think of the question that might emerge out of a place of curiosity instead? Get bothered is another practice. Wake up to what you want by identifying the why that motivates you. So why are you upset about something? What is it that you really want to have happen? Why is that important to you? You following? All this will be on the exam, so the handout will be very helpful. There's another practice he calls is pinch your brain. Use your attention as a superpower by interrupting mind drift and the pull of distractions with intentional tugs. He became aware of this when, on a walk once, a bat emerged out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, he became hyper alert and realized he had that capacity to really be alert. So he called that pinching your brain. So that's a practice that we can try when we find ourselves zoning out, becoming zombie-like. How might we spark ourselves into paying attention rather than drifting off? Get hooked on movement. Take any small step in anything to activate fresh energy. Rather than spinning your proverbial tires in the same old mud and ruminating about it, you might ask yourself, what's one step towards my values that I could take right now? Another is practice, practice, practice. Enjoy the rewards of repetition and the joy of incremental movements. So I know some of you have meditation practices, yoga practices, walking in nature, running, any number of practices that you might do routinely. And what he's suggesting is that every now and then you challenge yourself to bring some new improvement into that practice. So you might say, gosh, I'm going to go for a walk, and this time I'm not going to have ear pods. Is that what they're called? AirPods in my ear as I'm walking. I'm just going to pay attention to what my senses reveal to me. That would be one incremental change around a routine thing that you might ordinarily do. Do new, do different. Invite surprise, serendipity, and generate new possibilities. Find a new group of people to have dinner or lunch with sometime in your community. And you might discover that you'll find and make new friends and have some new interactions. Do something differently. Focus beyond failure. When we fail, the words here, use the emotional charge of failure to fine-tune where you channel your purposeful efforts. So when you feel that emotional charge of failure, ask yourself, what have I learned from this? What might I do differently moving forward? Rather than falling into the sinkhole at a time of failure. Ask yourself, how can you put one toe back on the ground? And ask yourself, what have I learned? There's just a few more. Be human, be humble, let awe be your access point for inspiration and your capacity for greater good. What I loved about the Arthur Foote responsive reading that we did is it refers to worship as including all those things of opening ourselves up in all those various ways. But I would substitute the word life in that and let our daily life be those kinds of practices that we attribute to worship itself. We don't need to contain it in 1 hour, but we can engage in all of those practices any moment, any time of the day. Press the pause button. Prioritize times for recharging your spirit. And then his last one is to revitalize your roots, connect with life's powerful resources, and by that he means nature observing some of the ongoing, inevitable change in nature, and allow that to feed that sense of change and movement in your own life. Is there one of these that really draws you the most? Is there one, as we're opening into this new year, that can become a steady practice to get you out of a somnambulant, drone zone, zombie-like state and allow you to ignite once again that life that works through us and within us? I hope that one of the projects that we all take is this congregation enhancing our experiences and the experiences of anyone who comes into our midst. I want people who come through our doors for worship, for learning, ritual, social justice, organizing, or well-being activities to know that we are not a zombie church. We are not the Walking Dead, but the wide-eyed, kick-ass religion. Did I say that out loud? Well, I'll say it again. We are not the Walking Dead, but the wide-eyed, kick-ass religion that cares about the dignity of each person, the conditions that bring forth human potential and possibility, and the responsible truth and care for our dear earth. So may it be. Amen.
So let's pinch your brain. I really liked, as we start stewardship today, and Becca Cotta is going to join us in just a second, I really liked that Reverend Larry included Jimmy Carter's, "How can I help?" Well, it's stewardship moment, and this is the time in our service when we reflect on what the church means to us and how we can support it to continue to be the thriving force in our lives and in our community. And so I invite you now to take a moment, to not be a zombie, and reflect on what this church means to you. To you and your family, what difference has this church made? What kind of meaning have you discovered that it has brought to your life? Once a month, now on the first Sunday, we do what has been called a Share the Plate. And this is an offering for an organization whose goals and activities align with our values and our work. The drum roll now. This month's Share the Plate recipient is the YWCA for their ongoing work for racial and social justice. Now, Becca Cotta is going to join us, and she's the Director of Racial and Social Justice and Advocacy for the YWCA of Delaware.
Thank you so much, Kate. Who's going to tell Reverend Larry how we actually get rid of zombies? Nobody tell him. Good morning, everybody. My name is Becca Cotto. I'm honored to serve as the Director of Racial and Social Justice for YWCA Delaware. It's a privilege to once again stand before the compassionate community of First Unitarian. Oh, he's got my words up there. That's amazing. Your support for our mission to eliminate racism and empower women has been a cornerstone of our progress. Today, I'm excited to share some of the milestones we've achieved together, outline the impactful initiatives as we have ahead, and invite you to continue this shared journey towards equity and justice. Oh, we do, great. Last year, because of your steadfast support, YWCA Delaware helped transform over 1,200 individuals into advocates through our racial and social justice programs. These advocates, many of you are them, spark vital conversations, challenge prejudice, and forge connections that strengthen the fabric of our communities. So this year, our advocacy efforts was relatively new to us down at Legislative Hall. As far as policy goes, we helped secure the passage of key reproductive justice bills, protecting essential health care for all Delawareans. We contributed to advancing voting right legislation, ensuring democracies accessible and equitable. We championed education equity policies to level the playing field for students statewide. And then we advanced legislation to prevent discrimination based on housing status, ensuring that employers and landlords cannot discriminate against individuals due to their source of income or current housing situation. Those are some of the things that we worked on this past year. I'm proud to share that these critical bills successfully made their way to the governor's desk, and you can view our full legislative recap on our website at YWCA Delaware. Our programs like the White Ally workshops, the Racial Justice Challenge, and community dialogues provide tools and resources and spaces for healing and understanding. As we look to the future, I'm thrilled to share some of the events and initiatives we have planned for 2025. The National Racial Day of Healing this year is celebrated on January 21st, and along with the Delaware Division of Civil and Human Rights, we're going to host coffee and conversations that day about racial healing, but we've decided to make this an entire year, so please follow us, stay involved. We're going to have more community conversations, we're going to have education panels, and just talk about a year of racial healing. We also have a White Ally workshop February 1st from 9 to 3. You can register for that right on our website. And it's at the Westminster Presbyterian Church, and it offers profound dialogue, practical tools, and racial justice works. And I know some of you participated last year, so please feel free to share with others in the congregation. This year, our Racial Justice Challenge begins on March 30th and runs through the 25th, and you can download that app right on our website. It helps you, it's daily motivations and educational information to help you build effective social justice habits if you haven't participated in that before. And then our Journey to Freedom, just stay tuned, that's in June, and that's a celebration walk. So, and be sure to visit our website, social media updates. We're gonna have continued conversations, some on colorism, some on LGBTQ protections, things like that coming up. We're expanding our advocacy, and this is a big ask besides a donation. If any of you would really like to get involved in advocacy down at Legislative Hall, know your legislators, you can make a phone call, send an email, meet with them. Any of those things, building those relationships really helps further racial and social justice legislation. We got here because we passed laws, and we need to fix those laws to move forward. So please feel free to go ahead and sign up for Advocacy Works. We're going to continue the fight for safe and affordable housing. We're also going to work on some small business minority projects to help build generational wealth. I already covered that one. Thanks. So your contributions make all of this possible. Behind every workshop, every legislative win, and community dialogue, our lives are transformed by the work that we do together. And today, I humbly ask you to invest in justice. Every dollar that you give enables us to sustain our programs, expand advocacy, and bring transformative events to our community. Your support empowers us to create a Delaware where everyone has equitable opportunities. And I'm so thankful to be able to start the new year with you all here at First Unitarian and the community members. Thank you for your partnership, your passion, and your belief in our mission. And thank you for not just imagining a more equitable Delaware, but by helping YWCA Delaware create it, whether by attending one of our events, volunteering your time, or advocating for policies that promote justice and equity. Thank you for all that you do.
Becca, thank you. Thank you for all you do for our community and for being with us today. Our Share the Plate offering means that all donations given today, unless they are explicitly noted to go to a specific fund, such as your pledge fulfillment, they will all go to our recipient, the YWCA. We will also leave a giving link up on our Church Center giving app on our website, and that will go to the YWCA for the entire month. The office will also be keeping an eye out for checks mailed in with YWCA on the memo line for the whole month. Thus, we have a special offering Sunday as well as a featured recipient for online giving the rest of the month. Now, please join me in dedicating our offering. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives. And these are offerings. If you have a lit chalice at home, I invite you to extinguish it as I read these words by UU Minister Reverend Vanessa Teiting. Like the flame of the chalice, may the flame in our hearts burn, remaining unextinguished. May it ignite our energies, our drive, our resolve to dream, to build, and live into the world. That good which exists for now only in our imaginings.
So now I want to invite Vivian Gray, who is our co-president.
So, hello. On behalf of the board, I would like to invite you to our first conversation with the board. This will be held on January 19th after the service. It'll go from 12 to 1:15. And this will be an opportunity for interested people to come and get to know the board and for us to get to know you. We will have an interactive discussion of your questions and any concerns that you have. This is not a congregational meeting. It's an informal discussion. And we hope that through this discussion, everyone will feel heard, and we will feel heard, the board also. I encourage you to bring your questions, have them ready. And like I said, this is not a congregational meeting. There'll be no slides, there'll be no presentations. It will just be an interactive discussion. We'll be meeting here in the sanctuary. There'll be a microphone, there'll be childcare. This is not a hybrid meeting, so you people on Zoom, you'll have to come here in person, which is not a bad thing. So we would like to see good attendance and a fruitful discussion, but all you need to do is just show up. You don't have to RSVP or register or anything, and I really hope you make it. And thank you, Larry, for giving me the opportunity to invite you.
David, thank you so much for playing the organ for us today, and I know it was well appreciated. Let's thank our wonderful AV team for what they're doing behind the scenes for us. I'm glad that we could have a return appearance from Kate Franta as our worship associate today. Two very quick announcements. Next Sunday, we will be welcoming our new members to this congregation. If you are intending to be a new member and haven't yet spoken to me, please find me in the parish hall following the service. I'd love to chat with you further about that. Also, our live stream adult education programs and other programs happening this winter. The brochure is out. It's available in the back of the sanctuary, and also many of you might have received it in the mail if you're on our mailing list. One of the things I want to highlight in that is the book discussion groups on Poverty by America, which Julie Brewer and Becky Laster are leading. Those begin Wednesday, January 8th, or Sunday, January 26th. More details are in the brochure and in our e-news, but since that's coming up soon, I wanted to highlight that. Our benediction this morning comes from a poem by James Cruz, a poet I've studied with and whose work I really enjoy. He writes, "There are so many thresholds to step through on a given day. May you choose the doorways that lead to kindness and peace, speaking only when you can say the most loving thing. Face each fear, doubt, and wish for your life to be other than it is right now. These are the hurdles that pile up like old newspapers, magazines, and junk mail in the hallways of the body until you learn how to empty it all out. Let in only what frees you this new year, what keeps the heart clear." So may it be. Our closing hymn is "Wonder Still the World Shall Witness," number 139.
Wonder still the world shall